Hello and welcome to the Watering Hole. Thanks for checking out this clip. Don't forget to like and subscribe because that'll make the baby Jesus cry, and I know how much you guys love making the baby Jesus cry. Laura Loomer isn't Trump's Achilles heel, she's a whole Achilles leg.
I really don't want to think about Laura Loomer anywhere near Trump's leg. I feel like she'd be a lost dog humping it.
I mean, they chose like the least flattering picture that exists of her.
There is no flattering picture of that woman, I'm sorry. I saw her on Tim Pool talk about executing traitors and how that would be such a good thing, making Tim end his stream early. Like, I'm sorry. There's nothing flattering about this fucking woman. She's a hyena.
Yeah, that's fine. So opens up. This is from the New Republic. This Michael Tomasky is the author. I'm not going to read the whole thing out verbatim because he puts a lot of artistic flair into his writing. So if you want to read the whole thing, go read it for yourself. It opens with, remember back in the spring when the conventional wisdom was that this Trump campaign was a highly polished operation? No, I don't remember ever thinking that about a Trump campaign. Okay, so he says, I have to say it seemed to be working for a minute as long as Trump was running against Joe Biden. Everything was basically going according to plan. But then Harris came in and the new candidate was good. She was young? Question mark? She's not really young. Younger than Trump significantly.
She's 60 years old. She's a boomer.
She's not old, but she ain't young. She was young, she was vibrant, she knew how to goad him. She was black. That's one way to goad him, is just be black. She was multiracial. She was a woman.
Oh God, this reminds me. Did you see what JD Vance said about food in the White House?
No.
It was the
most...
yeah,
no. That was... Oh, no, sorry. I'm thinking of Laura Loomer because we're on the topic where she said, if Harris gets elected, there's going to be a lot of curry. The White House is going to smell like curry.
Okay, so JD Vance said, and I quote, "I don't care if you're serving curry in the White House or fried chicken." And I'm like, those are two very specific dishes you chose. Those are very specific dishes attached to two very specific races that just happen to be the same race as hopefully the next U.S. president. That's really fucking weird, JD. That's really strange. Does your wife know you talk about Indians that way?
Yeah, I don't.
Aaron says, "Why
I don't understand." Okay, back on topic. Back away from the cooking advice.
Cooking is great, and more people need to learn to cook.
So La Cavita and Whale, they're the Trump's campaign managers, were able to smother their candidates' true impulses and personality for a while, but like mold on an old loaf of bread, Trump's personality was bound to take over. Which brings us to Laura Loomer. A lot of gossipy speculation popped up late last week, winking and nudging about the true nature of their relationship, which you tweeted something saying that, like, you're not going to assume that he is cheating on his wife with her because of something or other. And my gut response to that was, like, I retweeted him, like, I get where that's coming from, and normally I'd agree with you, but, like, given Trump's track record, I'm not prepared to say he's not cheating on his wife with her.
Yeah, that's entirely fair. My Paladin, thank you for resubscribing. I appreciate it. The thing with Laura Loomer, okay, so there's a quote that she said on Tim Pool's podcast that made me side-eye a little bit. It was when she said that right after the assassination attempt, the first person he went to was me. Like, that was something that she proudly said. And I just like, I wonder why.
If somebody tried to kill me, I would immediately go to the person that I have sex with the most, which is also the only person I have sex with.
If something were to happen to me, I'd run to Saki. Like, that would be my first place of comfort to go to. So, like, I know that I'm trying to impose normal human feelings on Trump, which is not easy to do since he's cool.
That is a difficult endeavor for sure. Yeah. So he calls out a double standard here. Can you imagine what the press would be doing if Doug Emhoff were back home in California and Kamala Harris was hopping across the nation in the company of some youngish left-wing social media star whose views were on the left extremist variety? Like, yeah, no, they would be having a field day with that. I mean, they already have a field day with saying
how
she slept her way to the top.
Like, why
just
is
by
it
virtue
not,
of the fact that she has a vagina?
Why is it not okay to make fun of Trump for possibly banging Laura Loomer and cheating on his wife when the entire narrative for Kamala Harris is that she did blowjobs all the way to the presidency? Like, why is one of these more okay than the others?
One of the candidates has a vagina, so it's okay to make those insinuations, apparently.
Yeah.
It's society's double standard. It's like anytime somebody tells you the patriarchy doesn't exist anymore, just like, no, it does exist. Otherwise, this wouldn't be a thing.
We also wouldn't have a higher amount of men in power in general, like across the board, as CEOs, as people in politics. Like, we wouldn't have that if we weren't that. And then somebody will fight against that and go, no, that's just because women are less inclined to do it. And like, gee, I wonder why they might be less inclined to go into these actively hostile workspaces for them. I wonder what might be the reason for that. I wonder what kind of self-fulfilling prophecy we might be talking about.
Yeah. And he talks about how Trump gets away with it, but how does he get away with it? It's important to answer this question the right way. The standard media answer is his base loves it. It's incredible how much disqualifying stuff gets swept under the rug on the excuse that Magaland thrills to it. Which, yeah, that's a big problem that I have with him too. Like, because so many things that Trump has done, any one of them would have been entirely disqualifying for any presidential candidate in the past. Just any one of them. Like, starting with the grab him by the pussies comment.
If you ask anybody what the worst thing Bill Clinton did was, most people are going to talk about the blowjob in the White House.
Yeah.
They're going to talk about the cigar incident in the White House. That's the thing they're going to point to more often than not. And then it gets lumped on Hillary afterwards, going like, why did you stay with this person that cheated on you? When nobody knows what the actual specifics of any of those relationships were, we just project our own onto them.
Yeah, but then
why is that the thing we think about the most when we talk about Bill Clinton? But when Trump does 10 billion Bill Clintons, it goes under the radar.
He was found civilly liable for rape. How is that not worse than getting a consensual blowjob once?
The fact that the judge in that case specifically said the only reason this didn't get called a rape case entirely was because in this specific area it didn't meet the criterion, but in every case he is a rapist.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to say alleged anymore.
Jess is saying, remember what happened with Al Franken? Yeah, it came up that he had once taken a picture with his hand hovering over, not even touching, but hovering over a sleeping woman's breasts. And that was so embarrassing that he resigned.
Yeah, Orla points out that's why if you are, quote, getting canceled, it has to happen from your own audience or it isn't effective. Yeah. That's the weird thing. Whenever somebody talks about cancel culture, they generally, unless they're on the left, they don't talk about the fact that it has to be your own viewers canceling you. Otherwise, it just galvanizes your base.
Yeah, exactly. That's why so many people can go on media tours to complain about how canceled they are, because they weren't actually canceled by their own base. They were canceled by people that already weren't agreeing with them about stuff. As they, they're trying to cancel me. Let me go on 15 different news programs to talk about how canceled I am.
Canceled. What's that one comic where the dude's like, canceled, silenced, nobody will let me speak. And they're just talking on like bigger and bigger national stages in every panel.
Yeah. So the reasons that this guy gives, there are two factors that play into this aside from just the MAGA base loving it. And the first is that Trump lives mostly inside the bubble of the right-wing media that will never challenge him about anything. Like, they give him softball questions and try desperately to help him out when he fumbles the hamster.
Yeah.
Like, because they see their job as trying to get him elected and protecting him and rebutting all the criticism that comes from other liberal.
I can't remember the dude's name. There was a Republican who was on CNN like 18 hours ago. I was watching it while cooking. And when the abortion thing was brought up, he constantly played defense for Trump, going, no, you don't understand. Trump is actually okay with abortion. He just wanted it to be a states thing. He's okay with California being as liberal as it can be on abortion, as long as the states are the ones to get the say. And I'm like, man, I wonder if you realize that if you go from everyone has access to half the people have access, that's a win for somebody who wants to ban abortion. Like, that means that things have moved further in their favor. That's not, I'm okay with California being that liberal. That's, I'm happy Georgia got to ban it.
Oh, also, as long as we're talking about this, I've been meaning to mention this on every stream for the last like 3 weeks, but I haven't. I've got my bot posting in the chat to go check and see if you're registered to vote and get registered if you're not. So, yeah, go ahead and do that.
These schools out, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So the right-wing media sees its job as not only electing Trump, but protecting him, rebutting any and all criticism that comes from liberals or the mainstream media, which he points out is two different things. Because let's keep in mind that the mainstream media, like New York Times, is not very liberal anymore. Washington Post, not terribly liberal.
Washington Post was more liberal until Amazon bought it.
Yeah.
Once it got bought by Amazon, and it also suddenly started talking more about how good billionaires are for the planet.
He doesn't mention it in this article, but it is worth remembering that the #1 viewed news station in the entire world is Fox News. So anytime Fox News gets out there and complains about the mainstream media, they are the most mainstream of any mainstream media. So, like, fuck off with that noise. You can't complain that the mainstream media is attacking Trump when you're sucking his dick 24/7. And you are the mainstream media.
Yeah.
But then the second factor is that elected Republicans won't challenge him, and that's the biggest thing. So, like, you go back to the Access Hollywood Crossroads, the grab him by the pussy comment. So the moment GOP officials weighed in that they were signing up for, like, that is the moment that they weighed in with what they were signing up for and plunged ahead. And that is what he calls their original sin. And so, like, if they had been, like, if Republicans had been like, no, we can't support this guy, then none of this shit would have happened. And politics would have just carried on business as usual. But they are almost two-person moral cowards beyond the known exceptions who have paid for their principles with excommunication from the Republican Party, like Liz Cheney. Like, she literally gave up her political career in order to try and hold Trump accountable for January 6th. And, like, she is kind of a shit person when you look at, like, her voting record and stuff. Mm-hmm. But, like, she had enough principle to be like, no, we don't try to overthrow the government. That's not what we do here. And the Republican Party was like, no, actually it is. Bye.
It's frustrating because there was a point in time where we had, and I think you and I actually had some of these conversations about a year ago, where it seemed like there was a legitimate split in the Republican Party that might fracture more and more, that would be seen as a very, very good thing. But as we get closer and closer to the election, it looks less and less like there's an actual split anymore. It looks more and more like MAGA infection just keeps proliferating outwards. And eventually we're just kind of stuck with that being the norm, as opposed to, like, because like this should happen with, you know, the log cabin Republicans, right?
Yeah, they're the ones who are, like, trying to take it back to Lincoln or whatever.
No. Yes, but they mostly were a gay rights movement within. Within the Republican Party.
I got it mixed up with the Lincoln Project. Yeah,
the Lincoln Project's different. The Lincoln Project is very anti-MAGA, like very anti-MAGA. The log cabin Republicans used to be more anti-MAGA because they were the gay rights platform within the Republican Party, and then they got subsumed and became infinitely more anti-gay as time went on, which is really fucking weird.
The leopards ate my face?
Yeah, the leopards ate their faces. It's Razor Storm says it's the death of the GOP. It will be interesting to see what becomes of it after its death. The thing is, it's not the death of the GOP. It's a metamorphosis of the GOP into a far more potent monster. And I would say what it is more than anything is the death of euphemism, which I'm stealing from Innuendo Studios 110%. But the death of euphemism is the time where all of the pageantry behind racism and being anti-gay, anti-LGBTQ, all of it disappears because it's not necessary anymore. The MAGA movement doesn't have to use things like they're stealing our jobs to be racist. They can just say
they're eating
not
the dogs.
White. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats down in Springfield. They get to do that now because the euphemism's fucking dead.
Did you see the clip of... Okay, so first off, Trump at one point was like, there's so many migrants in Springfield. They're eating the pets. We're going to send them back to Venezuela.
We will do large deportations from Springfield, Ohio. Large deportations. We're going to get these people out. We're bringing them back to Venezuela.
Like, weren't they Haitians in Springfield that you're complaining? Like, okay, why are we sending Haitians to Venezuela? Fine, whatever. He got mixed up because Venezuela is another one of those big countries that Republicans are complaining about immigrants coming from. So he just got his wires crossed. Whatever, happens to him all the time. Then JD Vance got up and was like, "Yeah, we're going to send them back to Haiti."
20,000 migrants, primarily from Haiti, have been dropped into Springfield, Ohio.
Like, I'm sorry, what? Haiti?
Haiti?
Sure. Yeah, Haiti. The country is called Haiti. You
Zada,
fucking idiot.
Thank you for the resubscription. Also, the fact that everybody has had to point out now, like, hey, this was made the fuck up.
Yeah. JD Vance fucking pointed out that it was made the fuck up. He got on the news cycle and he was like, hey, yeah, no, if I have to make up stories to get your attention, be like, no, we were already covering it. You didn't have to make it up. And that's
not the defense you think it is.
Yeah, and like so what you're saying is you're willing to demonize a minority for the sake of political gain. That does not say good things about you.
And you know the worst, so there's a friend of mine who this conversation came up in. And one friend in this conversation made the joke about the eating the dogs, eating the cats, and how crazy a statement that is. The other one goes, yeah, but every time some kind of like crazy statement like that comes up, there's some truth behind it, and just everybody had to pile on, just like, no, not this time. This is a long-standing like actual fucking issue. And it's like, no, you don't understand. I'm saying, what if it is true? Like, you need to stop believing shit before it's been proven. The time to believe something is when there is some evidence of it, not somebody made a claim, it might be true. Like, no, skepticism doesn't work like that. And yet we had to sit there for 10 solid minutes.
Did you see that JD Vance is like demanding that the media apologize to him because all the bomb threats that have been called into the local schools and colleges and businesses because of them making these eating the cats and dogs comments? Apparently all of them have turned out to be hoaxes, and all of them originated internationally. And they say it all came from the same country, but they won't say which one. I'm guessing it's probably Russia. It's probably Russia, if I had to guess. But like he's like, oh, we need to. Neuramdaputz has been a member for 13 months. Thanks for that. Eating the Pets is just slightly tamer version of blood libel. Yeah, basically.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, so he's demanding an apology because like all of the bomb threats turned out to be hoaxes. Like, bitch, no, that's not how this works. It like doesn't matter that they were hoaxes that came from another country. Do you think anyone would have called in a bomb threat in Springfield if you guys hadn't put international attention on this one little tiny town in Ohio and saying that the black people in this town were eating cats and dogs? Would any of that happen if you guys hadn't brought the attention on them for that completely fabricated story? No, it absolutely would not. And every time there's a bomb threat, whatever company or school or whatever, they have to take it seriously because you live in America where actual bomb attacks
actually happen.
Like, people show up with guns sometimes, and usually the people with guns have bombs as well. So like, you have to take that seriously. So like, it doesn't matter that there weren't any actual bombs. There were a bunch of bomb threats that disrupted life for normal people living in a small town that, like, if you talk to the people in the town, the Haitians are fine. They're there legally. The business owners will say they're some of the hardest workers there. And then, but because these guys feel like they need to demonize the people with darker skin than them, this town is now getting bomb threats. It doesn't matter that the bomb threats aren't coming from Americans. The fact is that those bomb threats would not happen if they had not told the lie. So, fuck off with that noise.
It's special pleading to enable racism. That's all it is. It is, this situation is somehow unique because I want to say something racist. That's what it always ends up being in these weird in these situations. And it's, people will try to defend that it's not. They'll go, no, there's some real issues underpinning this. Okay, cool. Then talk about those issues. Then if you think that there are real issues,
but I had to make up some shit to get your attention because you weren't talking about those issues. Like, bitch, you're running for vice president of the United States. People point cameras at you all the time. If there are actual issues, you can bring those up anytime you want. You don't have to make shit up.
You are the person on the campaign trail that everybody is looking at all the time as you're trying to pretend you're a real human being.
Zada Hagala, thank you for resubscribing.
Gilmarin says it's not xenophobia, it's just fascism. I will raise you that it's both. I will raise you that xenophobia is a component of fascism.
Justice says, okay, good. Yeah, no, you demonize the other. You have to find, you find a group of people that you cast as the menace to society that needs to be suppressed. That's like the number one step of committing a fascism, is finding a group of people to make the enemy. And Trump is doing that with immigrants right now.
The scary thing to look out for is always what happens the minute that group is eliminated. Once that threat disappears in some way, shape, or form, they all left your country, you killed them all, you sterilized all of them, like whatever step of genocide you're on, what's the next thing that happens? Well, you lose the ability to unite your base unless you find a new enemy. This is how these movements have always operated. Yep. They've got to find... They'll aim for black people until that is no longer socially acceptable. So they'll aim for gay people. Well, when that stops being socially acceptable, they'll aim for trans people. But bet your fucking ass, if they manage to succeed where trans people are concerned, they would start finding ways to conveniently target the gay people again, because history says that that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, this is how these groups the slippery slope operated. Is not a fallacy when it is backed up by historical precedent.
Gilmarin says, go back and watch Innuendo Studios' video on fascism. So I've seen his video on fascism, and I've also seen his like Steps to Fascism series multiple times. I will argue that in order to have fascism operate, there must be some level of xenophobia towards whatever person you are otherizing first. It may be just fascism from the top, but you are galvanizing something more dark in people lower to the bottom. You need both. You need the people at the bottom who are willing to be complicit.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the article. Lindsey Graham, one of the few who occasionally gravitate back to the planet to which John McCain usually kept him tethered, criticized the Trump Loomer Association last week. Bully for him. Senator Tom Tillis joined him. Marjorie Taylor Greene, of all people, objected as well. Probably out of jealousy.
I have to object because I wanted to be the one writing that.
She doesn't like it when there's another crazy lady at the forefront. She wants to be the crazy lady that everybody pays attention to.
She wants to be the one writing that former president.
Disco stick?
Nope. Look, Kamala's favorite curse word begins with M and ends with Aka, and she can't say it live on TV, according to her.
Yeah. So Politico reported on Sunday morning that the relationship has become a source of deep worry for mainstream Republicans, and Trump allies are concerned about the far-right activist influence on the former president, but no one new was quoted on the record. And then they bring up the fact that J.D. Vance has not commented about the smells like curry comment that Laura Loomer has made, given that his wife is Indian.
His wife is probably sitting there going, now I know you really want to get elected, but you also really want to stay married, right?
She probably makes a wicked curry. And J.D. Vance probably can't eat it because he's white as fuck. And then this leaves us in the same place.
How was your curry? Okay, good.
Oh, it was that thing was spot on. It was great. If you don't know the thing I'm talking about, just like look up JD Vance rerouting, and you'll find the video. It says, this leaves us in the same place as always, ninny Republicans ninnying away to reporters off the record, but petrified of doing anything that might resemble standing for something. So, like, yeah, they'll always talk to reporters on the condition of anonymity, so they can say, oh, I hate what the Republican Party's become. But then, as soon as they have a chance to do anything about it, they're just lockstep with the rest of the Republican Party. Because anytime anyone breaks from it, they get excommunicated from the MAGA movement. They get called a Rhino. And then he points out that...
You're pretty okay being called a Rhino, I think.
Yeah, I have an H in it.
True.
Yeah. And then as for them saying that it's the far-right activists' influence on the former president, well, the question here is who is influencing whom? I think it's kind of a little bit of both, because she's extreme and not hiding it, whereas he is extreme and trying desperately to hide it, but not really succeeding. So it's not really that her ideas are coming out through him. It's more of a guilt by association. However, like a valid guilt by association, because like this is a person that is allowed on his private jet everywhere he goes. So it's like, if you didn't actually agree when she says anti-Semitic things or just flat out racist things or calls for the death of his political enemies, like, could you imagine if Biden was flying around with someone who overtly called for Trump's death?
Mm-hmm.
That just would not track. Like he'd be called out on it immediately. But a presumption that this influence river is flowing in just one direction implies that if not for Loomer, Trump wouldn't be entertaining extremist and racist ideas. And says, well, have a gander at this story from NPR last week about 2 speeches given this year at Trump's Bedminster Club by a certain January 6th rioter by the name of Timothy Hale Cusinelli. It says, click on the link in your paragraph to feast your eyes upon Hale Cusinelli. He's aiming. So, have you seen this guy before?
I don't think I have, actually.
So, I will click on the link. And...
why does he just look?
That's the guy. That's the guy that Trump invited to speak at his private golf club twice. Like, I know you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but you don't look like that. You don't look like that by accident.
Mein Kampf, though.
You don't look like that by accident.
Like, it's the cover of Mein Kampf.
Like, yeah, no, like that mustache is not allowed anymore, especially not when paired with that hairstyle.
Mm-hmm.
I say he's aiming for a certain look. The hair part, the mustache. He's channeling someone from history, and it sure ain't David Ben-Gurion.
You can't just say, "Look, I'm just trying to look like my favorite silent movie protagonist,
Charlie Chaplin."
No, you don't get to do that anymore.
Yeah,
we're past that point.
Charlie Chaplin could pull it off. Nobody else can. It says, you might think that the fact that the January 6th rioter who walks around literally trying to look like Adolf Hitler and who gave not 1 but 2 speeches at Donald Trump's golf clubs would be news, but so far in the New York Times, they've been ignoring it. Yeah. So this whole thing with inviting that Hitler-looking guy, that happened before everything with Laura Loomer, before he started cozying up with her. So Trump didn't need Loomer to tell him to invite this man to his club. He has plenty of hateful instincts of his own, but certainly Loomer makes it all worse. Democrats in the media should be relentless about the presence of this hate monger in his orbit, but that doesn't change the fact that Trump is Trump, and Trump's gonna Trump. And then he says, I think it's safe to say that a strictly platonic relationship between Loomer and Trump is grotesque enough without even having to go into the salaciousness of him cheating on his wife, who also apparently has a security guard boyfriend of her own.
It just keeps getting more salacious the longer you look into it.
Yeah.
It really does.
And this is one of those, like, I don't really care. Like, being an atheist, I'm like, there is no sanctity of marriage. If neither of them are happy in the marriage, but for whatever reason they don't feel like they can divorce, I'm fine with them each having their own side piece. Like, it sounds like they don't, like, you can tell from the way Melania treats them when they're together in the public eye, like slapping his hand away when he tries to hold her hand and stuff. Like, she's clearly not in it for his personality.
Yeah.
So like,
Raptor Blue says Trump polyamory, one of the few gross things I can imagine.
no, but so here's the thing, like, if they were just like, okay, well, if they just admitted it, then like there'd be no point in not divorcing or whatever. But like, if there was some legitimate reason why they had to stay married, where like even an atheist and like someone who doesn't actually place any extra importance on the sanctity of marriage or whatever, like would accept that they need to stay married for this reason or whatever. Like, if they're not happy in that relationship, fine, go pursue other relationships as long as it's all consensual, whatever. I don't care. But the fact that he's part of the party of family values who says you should stay married no matter what and stay faithful to your partner for all your life and only have one sex partner for your entire life. The fact that, like, this is wife number 3, who he cheated on with wife number 2, who he cheated on with wife number 1, is like,
Yeah.
Like, if that was all consensual, I don't care, but you're being a hypocrite. Don't be a hypocrite. Just own it. Yeah, and so one of the things that Laura Loomer said is that is wildly racist and offensive was every damn day we see another story about illegal aliens going to the Ritz-Carlton, illegal aliens getting free flights, illegal aliens getting free clothes and free Okay, free flights, fuck that noise. Flying is the worst.
Flying sucks.
Why is she saying that like that's a benefit that we're like that's torture? That's like Guantanamo Bay shit. They're like, okay, I'm exaggerating, obviously, but
it is bad though. Like, flying sucks.
Yeah. And then she says, and someone's going to snap. Someone's going to snap. It's going to happen. And you know what? I'm not going to care when it happens. You know why? Because there's only so much people can take. So yeah, that's her saying she would have no sympathy for the victims of a violent attack as long as the violent attack victims were what she calls illegal aliens. Yeah.
And she doesn't care about the violent attacks as long as somebody brown enough is the one attacked.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's who the Republican candidate for president is, or who he's hanging around with. So MSNBC Chris Hayes, who's been all over the Loomer story, summed up the importance of all this last Friday by saying, it's not just guilt by association, okay? She's flying on his plane. He is using their rhetoric. He's choosing to empower people like Laura Loomer. Those are the sorts of people who will enjoy greater power in the second term. So yeah, it really doesn't matter if he's sleeping with her or not. That's just a salacious, like, oh, scandal, whatever, as if he can't survive another scandal. But like, the fact that he's like, it doesn't matter that she is an overtly racist piece of shit who isn't even trying to hide her racism and has made racist pieces of shit like Tim Pool shut down their streams to protect themselves because she's saying such extreme shit. The fact that that's who he's palling around with and is perfectly fine being seen in public palling around with her, that's concerning, to say the least.
Just a smidge.